I'm Julie Gardham and I'm Senior Librarian at Special Collections in the University of Glasgow Library. So our copy of the first folio is from a really great 19th century collection of books, the Library of William Ewing. He bequeathed his entire library of some 12,000 books to the library, which is an incredibly important and valuable donation. And incidentally, this collection also includes a copy of the second folio, which was produced in 1632, a few years after the first folio.
Dr. Victoria Price, Lecturer in Theatre Studies. The first folio is the first collected edition of Shakespeare's plays. It was published in 1623, 7 years after Shakespeare's death. It's thought that there are just over 230 copies of the first folio still in existence.
So of course, any first folio is a great prize, but it's not actually that rare a book. There are quite a lot of copies of it still around. And when you first look at our copy, you might think there's nothing particularly special about it. It's quite tatty looking, it's not complete. And so, for example, the first few leaves, unfortunately including the very famous title page and the portrait, are made up from facsimile copies. And in fact, what we've got is what's called a made-up copy of the book. So actually, it's a cobbled-together copy of the first folio. It's been brought together from several imperfect copies to make a complete whole.
One of the important things about the publication of the first folio was that it brought together 36 of Shakespeare's plays, 18 of which were being published for the first time. This means that the first folio is particularly important because if it wasn't for this publication, 18 of Shakespeare's plays may not have survived until today. This includes plays like Macbeth, As You Like It, The Tempest, Julius Caesar.
So on the face of it, you'd think that this isn't a particularly inspirational version of the book that we've got. However, when you look closely, you'll see that actually it's incredibly important for some contemporary annotations which are found in the first few plays within the volume. And this gives us a fascinating insight into 17th century reading practices and reactions to Shakespeare. And it suggests that an early owner or reader of the book actually saw the plays being acted contemporaneously. This is based particularly on comments that we find by the names of the principal actors at the start of the book. So somebody's written in by the actors comments like "no," by eyewitness, by report. And the most intriguing comment of all is "least for making," which is next to Shakespeare's name. And we interpret that as meaning that Shakespeare himself was least involved in acting in the plays because, of course, he was involved in actually writing them and producing them.
Another key thing about the first folio is that it gives us a little bit more access to some of the possible staging practices in Shakespeare's day. For example, more modern editions of Shakespeare's plays tend to be very heavily edited, whereas the first folio contains a number of what we think are possible actors' cues. These can be determined through things like typefacing, changes to punctuation, capitalisation, and changes to wording.
Of the other marginalia in the plays, The Merry Wives of Windsor is particularly well annotated. We've got lots of heavy underlining throughout, and a little comment which appears in the margins, "app," and we think that this is short for "approbo," I approve, and this is basically the 17th century equivalent of a reader going round the book, highlighting the texts and passages which is of particular interest to them. There are also some corrections and also some comments on the play. So for example, in The Merry Wives of Windsor, we've got next to a section dealing with Ford's mistrust of his wife, the person has written in "a good jealous man's dilemma." It is frustrating that some of these marginal comments are cropped in the binding, but we can decipher some of them. Who knows, we might find another annotated copy out there one day to make up ours.